Welcome to the National Gallery of Canada. My name is Beatrice Janbin, and I'm with Education and Public Programs. This conversation centers on the National Gallery of Canada's new exhibition, Moyra Davey, The Faithful, developed by artist Moyra Davey and Associate Curator of Canadian Photography, Andrea Kunard. The exhibition features 54 photographs and 7 films, including Davey's new film, I Confess, and related photographs reflecting upon her memories of life in Quebec during the 70s and 80s. Moyra Davey, The Faithful, will be on view at the National Gallery of Canada from October 1st, 2020 to January 3rd, 2021. Andrea Cunard is Associate Curator of Canadian Photography. Amongst the exhibitions she has curated in the last few years are Photography in Canada 1960-2000, 2017, Marlene Creates Places, Paths and Pauses, 2017, and Anthropocene, 2018. Cunard has taught photo history, Canadian art, and cultural theory at Carleton and Queen's University and lectured on photography throughout Canada. She is currently working on a major web-based project focused on the National Film Board of Canada still photography. Moyra Davey is a Canadian artist based in New York City who works across the realms of video, photography, and writing. In 2018, Davey was awarded the Scotiabank Photography Prize. She has presented solo exhibitions in major museums across the United States and Europe, and her work can be found in numerous public collections, including the Tate in London and Museum of Modern Art in New York. This year, Davey published Index Cards, a collection of her writings, along with I Confess, the catalog that accompanies this exhibition. So please welcome Andrea Cunard and Moyra Davey.
Hi, Moyra. It's great to see you.
Hi, Andrea. Great to see you too.
Yeah, it's nice to have this chat. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
And there's lots to talk about. You've seen the installation shots for the show. It looks absolutely fantastic. And hopefully you'll be able to come here at some point. Yeah. So I thought what we might discuss today, well, we can discuss a lot of things, I suppose, and we'll all probably get tangled up in one another, but which is lots of fun. But I'd like to discuss a little about the photography that's in the exhibition. I've been interested in your photography for a long time now, and maybe discussing a little how you feel that your course through photography. It's also an aspect of your practice that I've found not discussed all that much, really. There's a lot of interviews out there about your books, the films, which are fantastic and for great source for people to go to, but maybe take this opportunity at this point to look at some of the issues that you're dealing with in photography. And you remember when we first started out down this path, I asked you, like if you could go into the National Gallery collection and just pick out anything you wanted, like shopping cart in there and just say what your favorite photographers were and or people that you'd love to see in a show that you were doing. You gave me a whole list of photographers and they were absolutely fantastic, some of which we have in the collections and others not. But we could start maybe with one, the oldest one in the exhibition right at the moment. That's the portrait by Julia Margaret Cameron. And it's the portrait of Mrs. Duckworth. It was done in 1867. And if Mrs. Leslie Stephen, it depends on what point in her life you're talking about. But Julia Margaret Cameron's niece, mother of Virginia Woolf, and Julia Margaret Cameron's been an important figure for you, I think, in photography. And maybe you could tell us a little bit why.
Sure. I mean, she's someone that I studied, as a undergraduate and as a graduate student in critical histories of photography. And, you know, she was always kind of placed as, you know, this sort of bourgeois Victorian, at least in the critical, you know, the critical approach, this kind of bourgeois Victorian woman who, you know, basically she had two modes of working, and one was the Victorian, where she, you know, staged these tableaux of kind of mythical or biblical recreations, and they were, you know, they were kind of sentimental and a bit kitschy. But then she had this other way of working, which was totally fantastic, where she, you know, she did portraits of her, you know, her family, her friends, and that was actually, to my mind, a very modernist approach that she had. In fact, I always refer to her as Julia Prinsep Jackson, which was her birth, her name at birth, and then she became Duckworth, and then she became Stevens. But, you know, I think like one of the first things you see when you look at that portrait are the eyes of Virginia Woolf, and that's very, very striking. You also see this incredibly naturalistic portrait. You can actually see the texture of her skin on one side of her face where it's lit up. She's not made up. Her hair is, you know, just long. She's not really, she's not posed in any sort of, as a mother or a wife or someone in mourning. It's just like this very incredibly naturalistic portrait. So I think it's very striking. I became totally kind of fascinated and engrossed in reading about her life and looking at her images at that point. And she became a figure in a video that I made and in an essay that I wrote called Walking with Mandita. She just kind of opened up this whole world and this whole, you know, way of thinking about photography that she had, and that I actually kind of tried to adopt a little bit in the portraits that I made of my son and his friends with a 4x5 camera.
And some of the portraits, I find what's so nice about them for me personally is that there's just a little bit of hesitancy with the subject there. I like the way that you can feel that the subject is trying to negotiate this space in between the camera and themselves. You know, it's a very interesting exercise. And the other thing is that they're printed larger, and you can really feel like the print, like it's got a substance to it. Your earlier ones were maybe, well, a little less so. They're smaller in format. Yeah. But did you like moving to this bigger size? Yeah,
these ones, and so they're all gelatin silver prints.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I was really happy to be able to make. You know, I've talked about this idea of low-hanging fruit,
right?
And I think part of that has to do with just how easy it is now to take a photograph with a phone. You can take a fantastic, you know, photo with an iPhone or any kind of phone. And I mean, the lenses are just superb. And, you know, so digital photography has, I mean, it's enabled so much, but it's also, you know, I came up with that phrase, you know, low hanging fruit to, you know, just to denote a kind of photography that's very easily had. And I like to challenge myself with, you know, by using these cameras, which I've used all my life, but not, you know, not consistently, not right. I always switched around.
You know, the subject has kind of challenged you too, like the idea of the body. You've had to deal with that as a not a low-hanging fruit, as a higher hanging fruit, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, for a long period of time, I had this prohibition, about, photographing people and especially women, and it came out of, the kind of education that I got, around the, critical, practices of photography, people like Laura Mulvey and Martha Rossler, and John Berger, and so Craig Owens also was a big figure in that, and I all the portraits that I was making through the mid '80s, I kind of abandoned, and but then in the '90s I saw that there was a big shift in photography, partly to do with iPhones, I think. I found that really interesting, and I knew that, the kind of critical approach to photography was still being taught, but what you were seeing in galleries and on the internet was very, very, just like this, Ryan McGinley, Vanessa Beecroft, all, these different photographers taking, nudes and so on. And so, I mean, I had started putting myself in the image through video in 2006. I think that was the first video that I made after I decided to take a break from photography for a while. And so I put myself in the image without even really thinking. It was just convenience, actually, because I work, solo, and I thought about hiring an actor to deliver this monologue that I'd written, but in the end, I just did it myself. And then in a later video, I actually decided I was going to take photographs of people writing on the subway. Mm-hmm. And that was, for me, that was another big that was a taboo, subject and a taboo way of working. But I just decided I was going to see if I could take this permission that everyone else was, not everyone, but many, many people were that photography was granting. There's a whole history, as you know, of people photographing on the subway. Are truly fantastic. Images have been taken on the subway, going back to Walker Evans in the 40s and up through Chris Marker, his recent series Passengers, which are incredible. But it's a subject that really really fascinates me. It's a kind of, the subway is a kind of condensation of the city.
I thought, well, looking at your photographs and looking at the subway riders as we've installed it in the gallery, there's this kind of like movement that you can almost feel like moving along in a subway, and that whole idea of being underground and traveling and doing whatever. But it's this interesting idea again of like your focus on people who are in some kind of deep interior state. And I find that really kind of interesting. It reminds me like of this idea that when we were first talking of Cameron and how, this woman is coming out of the dark and we're focusing on her and thinking how much depth there is to this photograph, even though it's just an image, And the same thing in subway riders. There's this idea of like people who are almost unaware of what's happening around them because they're inside themselves, so to speak. Well, you've also said that one of your inspirations for the subway was Chantal Akerman. And how do you feel what she was trying to do and with her shots of the subway and you maybe channeled Julia Margaret Cameron for some of your photographs. Were you thinking of that kind of channeling for Chantal Akerman?
Well, definitely for one film shot that I did, I was, yes, quite deliberately channeling her shot from News from Home. Yeah, she did a very long shot on, it was either the 1, 2, or 3 train. I think it was the 1 train going north, and that's my train. Actually, that's my line. And so she has this camera, this film camera that's on a tripod, probably a very heavy tripod because it doesn't move. You know, the subway moves like crazy. It snakes.
Right.
But her camera, operated by Babette Mangold, who is an incredible camera person and artist, is completely still, and you just see everything that's going on. And you also see, because in the old subway cars, the middle doors of the trains would swing open. So you can actually see, I think at certain points you can see, 3 cars down. There's like this incredible depth of field. And see, it's like the train is a snake, and you can see all the way almost to the head of the train. And then of course there's all, people, some are ignoring her, some are annoyed by her camera. One guy kind of, scowls at the camera, and then he heads off into the other car. And, there's a long story behind why I wanted to channel that scene. And it's, I go into it in Hemlock, in the story of it in Hemlock Forest.
You really think that Robert Frank was one of the best artists to use words and images to combine them? And I've thought about that. Like, do you want to go into that a little bit? Like, what do you feel like he's really achieving there?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's like amongst a handful of artists who've really been able to meld the image and the words so that they're, neither one has, they're kind of woven together. David Wojnarowicz also did it incredibly well in his Sex series. And it's, there was this, when I was a student, there was this whole kind of another ethos around photography, which was, the photograph needed text to ground it. And so people were coming up with all different kinds of ways to combine photographs and text. It was hard to do because, and I think almost inevitably the words take precedence over the image. You go to the words and then the image. But with Frank's Polaroids, where he actually scratched words into the emulsion, it's it's this kind of perfect bringing together of the image and the word. And his language is, as with David Wojnarowicz, his language is really beautiful. He's Wojnarowicz wrote a ton, and he was a great writer, but I think Robert Frank was more laconic. But his words are well chosen, and they convey so much feeling and emotion and grief and joy. I mean, they're just, there's just so much affect in his choice of words, and the way he chose to do it, to literally scratch the words into the image. It makes for just like a really successful artwork, I think.
He also, I think, like you had this, a deep appreciation of the medium as an actual, a bit like material. He's done a lot. He did a lot of collages where he just taped things and wrote on them, and
hanging pictures on clotheslines.
Exactly.
Pictures of many pictures of pictures. Yeah.
Pictures of pictures. And, like recycling his work into, like very much like what you do too. You're always bringing up your photographs from the past, and you're putting them into your films so that they keep having new contexts and new meanings.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they became, I mean, the photographs, the portrait photographs became a perfect substitute, you know, because I'm talking about these people who were in the photograph. So to have the photograph was kind of perfect. It's, you know, it's very different what you get from doing that. And then in a later film, I tried bringing in the actual people to see, you know, what that would be like, the actual people that I'm talking about, my sisters. So first you have the photographs, and then I kind of do this experiment of.
Do you feel that you're looking for yourself in those people in some way, or this is Virginia Woolf said that, you know, she said that that quote I sent you about the subway, that you're kind of looking out to see yourself reflected in the eyes of others. Do you feel that you didn't need that in many of your videos, that you had your own kind of cache of images to work with in terms of, you know, using your photographs of your family, or like moving out into something like the subway, there's something out there that you're searching of yourself?
I think really what I was looking for was to, you know, kind of follow in the footsteps of these people that I admire so much, like Bruce Davidson and you know, Danny Lyon, all these people who photographed on the subway. It's not easy. I mean, it was easy for me because I was photographing writers who are looking down, but you know, it's a very volatile situation to be in. Bruce Davidson was, you know, chased, and people tried to steal his camera, and you know, I'm not saying it's not an invasive thing to do, but at the same time, the images that these people captured they're phenomenal, and the images that Walker Evans captured, you know, he waited a long time to publish them, you know, for reasons of privacy,
decades.
But you know, if we impose the rule that, you know, this is unethical, that, you know, people should not do it, we wouldn't have those images that are really so rich. And Chris Marker found an incredible way to do it. He altered the images digitally afterwards, and he had this idea that he was like giving back to people their image, but in a kind of you know, a better image of themselves, so to speak, a more beautiful image of themselves.
So if we go to the other extreme, let's say Louis Malle in Phantom India, there he is. It's been a while since I've seen that. But, but he's going out into a different country and photographing or filming people. And he says that when he stops filming, that's when he experiences, or you say this of him, that's when he experiences the real. And have you ever experienced that kind of thing? That when you stop taking pictures, when you stop filming, then you've got something quite powerful.
I mean, I totally connected to that idea that he expresses in Phantom India about how he can't experience the real when he's filming, when he's working, that he's sort of, you know, lost in this whole other world of, he needs to get the image. He's imagining what the image will, you know, how it will figure in the film and so on. But as soon as he stops, then he can kind of experience the real of this place that he's in, and probably like the intensity of the place and the people, because he's not focused. He's not on trying to get the image. And I think, you know, it's like this feeling that you can just be, you know, you've done the work and now you can just be. And sometimes, you know, I joke, like after I've gone out with a camera and a tripod or whatever, and kind of, you know, put myself in a difficult situation, and I've come home with something, I say to myself, okay, now I can sleep the sleep of the just.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you very much, Moyra. I hope you enjoyed this conversation between the artist and the curator, and I hope that you will all come to the National Gallery to take in this exhibition the way it's meant to, at your own rhythm and in your own time. The exhibition is on site until January 3rd, 2021. Hope to see you soon.